You know, I call wrestling the prototypical sports medicine sport because it has so many different issues that we have to deal with. Skin issues, they get skin infections from the mats and from each other, so we have to be aware of that, and some of them will exclude them from sport. Things like a herpes skin infection that can spread to the eyes and the brain can be extremely serious, so we have to make sure we recognize it, treat it, but keep them off the mat so they don't spread it. Other things, concussions, of course, concussions are in almost every sport we're seeing anymore. A concussion is a potentially injury that they'll get. And so wrestlers get concussions. You know, they get cauliflower ear, where their ears get messed up and bleed and can cause a problem. So, and then weight issues, you know, they're still cutting weight to meet certain weight classes, so we have to be aware of that. Get into some nutritional issues with that and hydration issues. And you know, wrestling, we're saying women are wrestling now too. It's not a male sport only. So at the Olympic level, they have wrestling. And so we just need to be aware that wrestling has so many different things. The orthopedic things like knee injuries, and I saw one yesterday that fractured his nose from wrestling, from being head-butted. So it has everything in sports medicine. Wrestling has all that. It's a good sport. I really like it. You don't think about it until you see it, and I've been around wrestlers over my career, and you know, like I said, it's always kind of fun because the wrestler can have almost anything. So you got to be ready for it. And you also have to understand wrestlers, you know, they want to wrestle. These are tough athletes who see a skin thing and they don't want it to be recognized because they don't want to be pulled out of their sport. But if you think about what could happen if they get a bacterial infection like the MRSA, the staph bacteria, if it's not recognized and treated, and it can be spread like wildfire, that can be a real problem for a whole team. So coaches, I think, are beginning to recognize if you go to someone who understands wrestling, you don't pull them out if they have a little rash. It's not contagious, but if they have even a fungus infection on the skin, you got to treat it, pull them out, and so yeah, wrestling is a good sport for sports medicine. First thing is take showers. You know, I'm amazed now in this day and age how many of these athletes go work out and they shower at home. Why would you want to leave that school without showering first, putting on clean clothes? And so hygiene, I mean, how often do we talk about simple hygiene and the prevention of illness across the board? But in wrestling, it's close contact, skin to skin, face to face. And so showers, shower, shower, shower. Wash clothes. Don't ever wear wrestling clothes again. Wash them. So parents need to be aware of that. Now, of course, sometimes student athletes don't want to hear their parents say take a shower, but hopefully we can get them to buy into that simple concept. And then also recognizing, you know, some of these athletes will go home. They've been injured, but they don't want to say something to coach or parent or anything because they want to be tough. And all it takes is to say, hey, you know, I torqued my knee. And to have a parent say, well, let's see how it goes, put some ice on it, and then be aware if it keeps bothering them to get them into someone that can take care of them. Yes, athletic trainers in the schools are extremely important, but we have 14 at 14 different schools, and yet how many other schools maybe don't have the expertise of an athletic trainer? Yet as a parent of a high school athlete, you know, high school athletes are becoming independent. They don't want their parent hovering over them, asking how they're doing. Things like, I had a case just not too long ago where the athlete came home and they acted different. And the parent just thought they were in a bad mood and asked them, how are you doing? Not good. And they just kind of went to their room. The reality is he had a head injury on the mat. Didn't want to say a lot. He wasn't feeling good. Had a headache, was nauseated, tired, and so he just ate, went to bed. Fortunately, in the morning, he still had a headache, and the parent recognized that and said, we better get this checked out. So it's okay to be inquisitive as a parent. You don't want to hover too hard or push them too hard. And then let the athlete know that there are people out there, providers that are there to take care of them and get them back into the sport. I tell parents, my job is not to get them back into sport quickly, it's to get them back to sport healthy as quick as we can.
Hydration in wrestling is very important. You know, just with any other sport, you know, wrestling, you know, you're exercising constantly and you don't get a break when you're on the mat. So being able to already prepare ahead of time is what you need to do, which is what you're supposed to do with every sport. But they don't really have a choice. When they're in the middle of a match, they can't go take a drink. So they have to do that. And then with the rules that they've changed, I think roughly about 5 years ago, part of their weigh-in is also a dehydration test or a hydration test. So they have to be a certain color on like a dipstick when they go in in the morning for their weigh-in. They have to be real careful on what they're drinking and how much, you know, the people that have to watch their weight a lot more are obviously usually the lower weight classes. So they have to really schedule their eating. They've got to really schedule their hydration, when to do that, how much to do that. And they've got different, you know, ways that each kid does something a little bit differently. But the really good ones will be able to, you know, maintain a regular diet and, you know, obviously all the common sense things, good color plate, stay away from the junk food, stay away from the salt, because obviously salt's going to retain the water, which they don't necessarily want for the weighing in. So, and most of the weight that they lose daily is all water weight. So being able to rehydrate and check that weight before and after is how they, you know, keep track of all that. With weighing in, part of all the rules changing, I think, again, roughly in about the last 5 years, percentage-wise, I think it's they can't, once they have like their initial official weigh-in at the beginning of the season, you can't fluctuate, I believe it's within 2 weight classes from that initial weigh-in, which is, I think, usually 8% of your body fat or body weight. So that's really changed, because you used to have people completely cutting, doing all the unhealthy stuff, all the bad things you've ever heard. But now with that stipulation in place, you can't do that. So at least during season, because they're being guarded by the state, has all these rules. The coaches have to follow all those rules, so they can't be implementing all the crazy stuff anymore. As an athletic trainer, seeing the wrestlers, it's a one-on-one sport. You can't blame anybody else. You're the only one that can fix whatever the problem, whatever's happening on that mat. You're the only one that can do it. Coach can yell, kids can yell at you, but you have to be able to do it. So it's a very individual sport. So for that sake, that's a very good, I guess, personal motivation type thing. You know, makes you a stronger person, be able to deal with stuff yourself. You can't blame anybody else. It's all you once you're out there. So, and also as an athletic trainer, you know, they have the crazy injuries. So dislocated elbows, a lot of blood, those are things that we're dealing with, because they're constantly rubbing up against each other, doing a crossface or whatever, and breaking a nose or touching it a little too hard or whatever, and so we're constantly having to take care of blood. The body ends up in different positions that just scare me. So, but I mean, they're used to it. So, but again, the referees have a limit. They're supposed to watch, you know, on how far a shoulder can bend, how far you can be on your neck, and, you know, so you don't get in too crazy of a position. But as an athletic trainer, it's just not pretty. With wrestling, injuries are mostly a lot of blood. We have shoulder injuries and knee injuries, I guess, would be probably higher up on the scale versus an ankle or an hip per se. But their arms are getting pulled and yanked in all sorts of directions, and then their knees end up getting basically chicken winged or whatever you want to do to, yeah, anything gets bent in ways. The knee is supposed to go just up and down, and they tend to go sideways. Preparing to be a wrestler at the high school level is a lot of hard work. Physically and mentally, just like most sports, 80% of it's usually mental, probably more of it in wrestling. So, I mean, because you have, like I said, you have to be the one that's doing everything. So you have to be ready to get in there. You can't go in there and halfway do it. You're going to get hurt for sure then. So being prepared, being fit, being able to manage your diet is a huge thing once you get to high school, because I don't think they have to really watch that too much when they're younger. It's when they get in high school is when they get set up on all in the weight classes and stuff more. So making sure you're eating a good diet and hydrating and understanding how that fuel assists you in whatever you're doing. And if you're not putting the right fuel in your body, you're not going to be able to go. Being prepared for that transition from sport to sport, age is on their side because they can transition a lot better. But if you've been in shape for the first part, you know, it's just you've been using your muscles, but you're just going to have to start using them in a different way. Obviously, wrestling, you get squished up a lot more. but your body tends to adapt. As long as you've been fairly active, you should be okay. But being able to start that transition in Kansas, we have that dead week time, unless your football team's still playing. I mean, you can be going and working on getting into different positions and, lifting in those different positions just to kind of start getting yourself a little bit more prepared for the little bit more anaerobic and short motions that you have for wrestling.
Head up, head up, head up. No. Drag out. Get that elbow, drag out. Drag to the left. There you go. Nice, nice. There you go, right there. Tap, on the left. Nice. There you go, head off the mat. Off the whistle. Come on, Matt. Come on, Matt.
Don't sit to your hips. Head on fighting,
Run it. Step in front. Right there.
Head up. Scoop the head.
Fight.
Right there. Settle down.
Come on, Garrett, pull the base. Pull the base, Garrett.
It's tough. Go with the arm. There you are. Face and flat. Go back.
You're up. Stand up, Garrett, stand up. Come on, Garrett. 20. Keep working. Head up. 1, 2. Nice. Run the head. Shot. 2.
Ball out, nice shot, bud. Keep it up.
Up to side, run it. Nice, set the shoulder. Set that shoulder, there you go. Set the shoulder. Get the hip. Good.
Cradle.
Cradle. Jump sides, help you out. Jump sides, hip to hip. Hip to hip here. There you go, bring it back. Knee to side. Knee to rib.